Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to address a comment that was made prior in opening statements to Mr. Walden. You mentioned that you felt like there were not massive numbers of illegals voting, and this shouldn't be a focus. But I think with more than 7 million illegals crossing into the United States in the last 3 or plus years, it is our duty that we ensure that we are protecting the integrity of the election system. And so that's why we're here today, is to ensure that that doesn't happen. Yes, we have identified, Mr. Adams has identified areas where this is occurring, but to suggest that we shouldn't be focused on this because it's not happening now, I think is misguided. Mr. Von Spakovsky, in jurisdictions that allow non-citizens like Washington, D.C., to vote, will non-citizens be on the same voter registration lists as citizens?
As far as I know, they will be. And if I just quickly mention, the only requirement is to be a resident for 30 days. That means the ambassador from Russia, the tyrannical regime trying to obliterate Ukraine, could easily register and vote in that.
Should federal law require these jurisdictions to have 2 separate lists and 2 separate ballots to ensure that this type of situation does not happen?
Yes, they should. Otherwise, aliens may be voting even when they shouldn't be in federal elections.
And can you talk a little bit about the proposal that you've been championing, which requires federal district courts to transmit the names of dismissed non-citizen jurors to the state's chief election officials?
Sure. In 2005, I think it is, GAO actually did a study on this. They were looking at information that might be helpful to state election officials. They surveyed a number of federal district courts, and one federal district court said, well, I think it was a 2-year period, about 3% of the individuals been called for jury duty had been excused because they were not U.S. citizens. And remember, you have to swear under oath when you're answering questions like that. Obviously, that information should have been sent back to state election officials because those district courts also all confirmed where were they getting their list of potential voters in places like Atlanta and Arizona from the state election officials. So clearly, these were all individuals, aliens, who were registered to vote, excused from federal jury duty, yet the information wasn't getting back to election officials.
I want to pivot back just briefly with Ms. Sutherland's discussion on foreign influence in our elections through these C4 organizations. And I want to enter into the record, asking unanimous consent to enter a report from the People United for Privacy on the impacts of foreign donor reporting schemes.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Adams, I want to move over to you. The National Voter Registration Act exempted 2 states from requirements for registration. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Sure. I've had the pleasure, I guess, of reading the congressional record from '93, and one of the issues was an exemption. And there were 7 states at the time. Maine has since been unexempted, but the 7 states, New Hampshire, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Idaho, Wyoming, and North Dakota, were exempted from the NVRA originally because they had same-day registration. They had same-day registration. North Dakota doesn't even have voter registration, so they were exempted. We actually brought a lawsuit in Minnesota and Wisconsin the last week to question that as an unequal sovereignty issue, that we're trying to get public records, because you can't get public records in Wisconsin, especially from WEC, and not easily at least. And so we're trying to get public records in Wisconsin and challenging that exemption.
If Congress were to amend the Voter Registration Act, as some are thinking about doing, how would it work in these states that are exempt?
Right. I think Congress should strongly consider ending the exemption, because these states are already doing the motor voter registration generally, right? They're complying with what the Democrats wanted in '93, but they're not complying with the Dole Compromise of '93, which was to make them subject to public inspection and to have clean voter rolls. So those 6 states are exempted from the clean voter roll obligation that I think Congress should seriously take a look at.
I think the big issue that I have is, as we're looking at this holistically, is that the voter rolls are not being cleaned up, which is causing some of the issues that we're seeing, and certainly we need to be addressing that. With that, Mr. Chairman, my time is about up. I yield back.